thank you for joining me on my first podcast today. We have with us a very special guest who is Megan McCubbin. If Megan, you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell everyone about yourself.
Well, thank you very much for having me. First of all, I'm very honoured to be your first guest. That's quite something. So thank you very much for asking me. So yeah, my name is Megan McCubbin. I'm a zoologist and wildlife TV presenter, but I'm also a campaigner and first and foremost a scientist, really. So I do lots of different things, everything from kind of science communication to photography to field work, anything and everything revolving around wildlife. Count me in, pretty much.
So yeah, it's amazing. I do actually like some of your photography. I do take
Some of it.
some of it. Yeah, I've got to be critical. And you must be used to the criticism, surely to God.
Oh yeah, you got to have a bit of criticism. That's how you improve, isn't it? So
Well, just being around Chris must be constantly critical of your work with your photography.
I give as good as I get. He is, very creative and therefore quite critical, or well, not critical, but quite constructive when it comes
Yeah,
to giving feedback on photography. But I learned from him, so yeah, I can give it back equally, which is which
yeah.
is good fun.
You had a head start to most people, I think, with a photographer, having someone like Chris, I suppose, showing you the ropes with the cameras and everything else. I know that when I've spoke to him, I do find his critique very honest. But it's great to have that, because some people who I know, and I'll show them the photographs, they will tell me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Whereas when I speak with Chris, he will literally be like, no, that's terrible. Or no, that's good. Or try this or try that, so that's pretty good. And we'll talk a bit more about the photography later on. So obviously lockdown restrictions are easing everywhere. We've just had a big restriction lifted here today, which is great. And I want to talk a little bit about the lockdown and the experiences and how everyone's coped with it. I've seen people struggle and I've seen people really use it to their advantage and grow new businesses out of it. So I'm keen to speak to all my guests and ask them how lockdown has been for them. And one of the ways in which I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask them to pick 3 words. And we'll take one of those words and we'll discuss why you chose that word. So if you could pick 3 words to sum up the whole of lockdown from the very start to today, what would those 3 words be?
It's a tricky question because this could be so many different words. I would probably have to go with number one, gin.
Nice.
Gin is a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say pause, and I would also say reconnect.
So gin, reconnect, and what was the middle one?
Pause,
Pause,
pause.
as
Like
in,
put on pause.
I'll put it on pause, not as in dog pause.
Not as in no, not as in dog
No,
pause.
that's an accent thing.
It's an
Yeah.
accent.
So, okay, let's go with put it on pause.
Okay.
Why pause? It's quite an interesting word, actually. I wasn't expecting something like that.
Well, I think it kind of caught everyone off guard, despite the fact, in March of 2020, we were very aware of coronavirus in China and spreading around other countries. And I think we kind of were in a false sense of security for a while about just how bad it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came into the first lockdown, I think kind of everything paused. Everyone kind of came to a stop. And whether that was our daily routines, whether that was what we were thinking, what we were feeling, everything just froze. We had a moment in time where everything became quieter because we were all in our homes, we were away from the people that we loved, and we had a chance to kind of, I guess, reevaluate and just, I guess that the other word, reconnect, comes back in. So
Yeah.
we put on pause and we discovered new things about, maybe that was a hobby, maybe, reconnecting all those Zoom pub quizzes or Zoom, oh god, they were awful by the end, weren't they?
Oh God. Yeah. You were just like, I'm not joining the quiz this weekend. It's the 19th one. I'm done. You know.
Yeah. Anyone said, oh, social Zoom, it was just kind of like, oh no, here we go
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we all just kind of took a breather and it gave us a chance to reevaluate a lot, whether that was in our personal lives, professional lives, or thinking more open-mindedly about the like environmentalism and
Mhm.
the issues that are facing, where this virus came from, why it came, and as a result of how we treat the planet. So I think a lot of people used it as a time to pause and reflect.
Yeah. Do you I'm just going to pause it one sec there because I can notice in this microphone just going, and it's slowly,
Sorry,
slowly drifting. So 2 seconds.
drop it down.
Yeah. That's better.
There we go.
Right. So yeah. So pause and reconnect. Then in that moment, when everything paused and everyone was sort of a bit cautious about what they were doing, nobody knew exactly what the rules were. There was a lot of uncertainty about things. Did you suffer any sort of anxiety in that moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think, the idea of going out to the shop, I mean, I was very strict with lockdown. I have been all the way through with restrictions. I went out once a week just to the local shop to get food, and that was all I did for about 3 months.
Hmm.
Luckily, I live in the New Forest, which has a lot of green space, so I was able to go out and explore the local woods. So lucky to have that. It was a bit of a lifeline and a silver lining for me. But every time you go out to the shops, it was just like gloves on, mask on. There was a lot of anxiety around the virus, and we weren't sure exactly at that point how it was transmitting or when a vaccine would come. So I do think there was kind of concern, particularly about family members that are still working as key workers. Are they going to get it? So yeah, there was some anxiety around that, and of course mental health suffered you know astronomically. I think the first lockdown was springtime, so I think everyone had that distraction of sunny weather.
Yeah.
They were in their gardens and we were able to be outside, which did make things a lot easier, particularly that first lockdown when everyone was very unsure. So having that in the springtime, if there's ever, there's never a good time to have a lockdown, but we were lucky that we had the spring and the summer there for that first instance when I think most people were probably more scared
Yeah.
than they are now. I think the winter was very tough, going for a lockdown in the middle of winter where we couldn't be outside and we couldn't. Well, we could be outside, but it got a bit chilly.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think throughout the course, I think mood changed, mental health has changed. Yeah, it was definitely a struggle at times, wasn't it? But for me, having the green space outside was just that lifeline, like it was for so many others as well.
Yeah, you noticed a lot more people were going to parks or they were in the local area and they're doing walks and they were doing one or two walks a day and they were getting out and they were discovering new things that they may have not previously discovered if there wasn't these restrictions in place, because we all get bogged down with life and routine and we just stick to that because that's what we know, that's what's safe, and that's what we all do as humans. We're very impressionable people and we'll often just stick with what we know and do what we know. And personally, I found, as you say, the first lockdown, it was almost gimmicky, I suppose. Everyone's like, "Oh, we're locked down," and a lot of people were taking it seriously, but a lot of people weren't. And it's like, oh, I'm going for my daily walk, and a lot of people didn't take it as serious. And then when the second lockdown come around, and it was winter, and the weather, you've got no sun, you've got no vitamin D, it's dead dull, and we all know the weather affects our mental health anyway. Add that the second lockdown, people are a bit tedious and a bit tired. That's when I started to see a lot of cracks in a lot of my friends and family and people who I know on the internet were beginning to struggle. And the whole mental health side of things, it is tough, and I don't think we're going to see the actual real effects of this for a few years, until a few years down the line, especially with kids.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it in my own children, I've noticed it in children everywhere. I mean, my friends' children, and they're all saying the same thing. So I don't think it's going to end. I think this is going to be an ongoing issue that we're going to have, and I think we're going to see the issues of anxiety and the mental health for a long time coming.
Yeah, I mean, even as things are easing up, people were nervous, and
Hmm.
we're not used to being close to people again. And I mean, I see things on the TV that were, sometimes a film that was filmed 10 years ago, and there's a big
Mm.
group of people, and for a split second, I go, "Oh, they're so close together. What are they doing?" And
Yeah,
then I'm like, "Oh no, wait a minute. This film's like 10 years old. That's
yeah,
actually okay."
yeah,
Um, but it is that kind of feeling, isn't it? And you see, festivals and gigs are starting to be planned. I know now some of them being postponed again,
Hmm.
but it's just like, God, I'd love to go to a festival. I love festivals. I love gigs. I love all
Mm.
that kind of stuff. I love live music, particularly in the summer. But
Yeah,
I'm not booking tickets yet. I've just the idea of that at this point in time, it's for me personally is a bit too much.
yeah,
And it's great that things are easing up as they are, but I do think you're right. The effects of people's mental health, we know that mental health charities have just been overwhelmed. The
hmm,
NHS is overwhelmed anyway with COVID, let alone kind of the mental health crisis that people are facing. So I do, the aftermath of that is going to be really tricky, especially for young people. Their education has suffered massively.
yeah,
Being stuck at home, unable to be with their friends, which is really, really hard. And probably spending more time on Xbox and everything than anything else.
yeah,
So yeah, I definitely feel for young people at this point in time, whether that was going off to university or whether primary school, whatever. I think
mm,
it's been so tough on everyone in so many different ways. But at the same time, we've all gone through it together, and we're all there for one another. And I think the community feel has come out quite a lot. Everyone's feeling everyone's all in the same boat, and we're trying to support one another the best we can. And I think at this point, that's all we can do is check in with your friends, send them a message. Are you okay? Are you really okay?
yeah,
Do that double ask. I think that's really important.
mm,
And just check in with the people that and just be supportive, because
yeah,
it has been tough.
yeah. The saying "in the same boat." I prefer the saying "we're in the same storm but different boats,"
Yes.
because we all are individuals and we all have different coping mechanisms. So somebody, as you say, you're very, very lucky to have the New Forest, and you're very, very lucky to be in the position where you have this on your doorstep, and that has helped you massively. Then there's other people who won't have that opportunity, and they will suffer. So I think different boats, same storm, and we all weather it differently. But just to go back quickly on the anxiety thing, I think one of the things that I'm trying to do when I go to the schools, or when I eventually get to go to the school when I'm allowed, is anxiety is often treated as a bad word. Okay. And people suffer with anxiety. We don't actually suffer with anxiety. We suffer with sort of how to maintain and control that anxiety, how we tackle that anxiety. We all have anxiety, and we get anxious because we care about something or we're passionate about something. But it's how you manage the anxiety. That's where the issues are, and I think there's a lot of miscommunication, and there's a lot of people who just say, "Oh, I'm suffering with anxiety." Well, you're suffering with how to maintain and control that anxiety. There's a difference. And I think once we can get people to understand that, then people's minds and the perceptions will change a little bit, and it will help them, you know,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think now is a more important time than ever to be having those kind of conversations, because that anxiety is flaring up massively across the nation.
Yeah, and yeah, you've got other issues. You've got social media. Social media is a great thing, but it's also a really negative thing. Um, you've got social media. You've got home life. That all these kids have got so much to contend with. Schools. I mean, I know my eldest daughter just transferred into high school during lockdown, so she's practically missed the whole of her first year. And you'll know yourself, your first year in high school is where you're establishing a little bit about yourself. You're establishing new friends and connections. Your sort of persona might be changing a little bit, and they've missed out on all of that. And I think it's quite a big character building opportunity for kids, and to not have that, I think, is such a shame. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. The developmental opportunities, like you say, making friends,
Hmm.
learning, and,
Hmm.
and just kind of finding out who you are.
Yeah.
By having different experiences thrown at you in that first year, you make some of your best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Definitely.
it's incredibly difficult, incredibly tricky.